Hey there folks, it's me TheTacticalBrit, and I'm playing on Wake Island in a game you probably haven't heard of before, but there's a good reason that you should. Now this is Warfare 1944. Warfare 1944 is a sort of passion project slash development project from a place called Drakeling Labs, which is headed up by the YouTuber BlueDrake42. Now BlueDrake42, much like me, if there's a hardcore or tactical shooter, he's there, he's playing it, he's giving it a go. And I always get asked in this channel, have you heard of X shooter or Y shooter coming to the market? And chances are, if it's a hardcore or tactical shooter, I have. And I was recently sent some keys for both this and the modern variant of this game, which is Operation Harsh Doorstop. Operation Harsh Doorstop and Warfare 1944 is a World War II and modern equivalent of games such as Postscriptum, Squad, Hell Let Loose, and it's a very different take on those games, because what this game is hoping to achieve is what the games of past did achieve at a certain level, but not to the futuristic standards we expect today. Warfare 1944 is very reminiscent of what you would expect in the old Battlefield 1942 and 43 games, and Operation Harsh Doorstop, although I have no footage of it presently, is very reminiscent of what you would expect from Project Reality in Battlefield 2. Now, I know your first words are probably thinking, this isn't the prettiest game in the world. And you're correct, these are by no means graphical masterpieces. But what these games are sacrificing in some places, such as graphical fidelity, they are very much making up for that in the functionality department. And I guess that's the mantra for both of these games. It isn't necessarily about what is, the most amazing looking thing you've ever seen, but rather what is what you would want from a first-person shooter. And if you go to their Trello board, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Now, the features I'm talking about here will feature in both of these games. So we have a lean functionality, prone and vaulting functionalities you'd expect from any FPS, but here's where it gets interesting. We have, this is probably the biggest one, networked environmental destruction. Now, the reason this game looks a little bit different is because I do believe this is a voxel-based game, in the sense that it's destruction based on elements of the game and the game world that has been built in a certain way. And that appears to be the case. And networked environmental destruction is a massive, massive thing. It's something that isn't achieved in most development of games because it's actually a challenging thing to do. And it's why you haven't seen it in something like Squad, Postscriptum, or Hell Let Loose, is because simply at a very fundamental development level, doing networked environmental destruction at a scale of a warfare game is a challenging prospect, and for people who have played Battlefield, that is cutting-edge technology. And whilst it's not impossible for a development team to produce something of that scale, it is a challenge, and it's something that these guys are undertaking. So networked environmental destruction, and we're talking about missiles blowing down buildings, entire buildings, we're not talking about some jokey level destruction. We're talking about serious level stuff where, you have buildings that are ripped apart by missiles and grenades and bullets and everything in between, and a full physics-based system in that respect. This is a physics-based FPS title. And whilst what you're witnessing now is pre-alpha, very early, and just features mostly infantry gameplay, this is what this game is going to be. An environmental destruction-based game that also has a very great modding source development kit. So the SDK for both Operation Harsh Doorstep and Warfare 1944 will be available as soon as humanly possible. There is also bipod functionality, the ability to build bases, ground vehicle physics, so Humvees, tanks, and everything in between, impressively airborne vehicle physics, because that's something that's going to be in the game too, and, for all of you Battlefield fans out there, naval vehicle physics. So yes, whilst the game I present to you on stream right now or on this entire video may not necessarily be the most pretty or wonderful looking game in the world, the simplicity for it makes up in so many other different ways, especially in terms of functionality. We're talking about a full vault-prone lean system, suppression mechanics, integrated anti-cheat, single-player and multiplayer bots, deployable spawn points, ammunitions, medical supplies, proximity voice communication, spawn selection menus, explosive weaponry, dynamic loading screens that showcase the maps that you're playing on. We're talking about the full functionality feature set of what people want from these kinds of shooters. And it's incredible if you look at the actual Trello board themselves, how many maps they're already working on and what they've already achieved. It's a very fast developing game, and I think that's what the sort of simplistic element of the graphics that you're seeing allows these people to do. One of the maps for Operation Harsh Doorstop, named Kajif City, is effectively the kind of urban environment in sort of the Middle Eastern sector that you would love to see in a game like Squad, but has kind of rarely been achieved in the game based on the sort of gameplay that they presently have. And we also have things like the Panzer IV tank, the Sherman tank, we have the Panzer wagon, you know, we have the armored car, the T-17, we have transport trucks, and also we have the Nubel wagon and the armored jeep. We also have U-boats and the Navy USS Interpret. We also have the Navy USS Aaron Ward and all kinds of madness such as the ability to drop kits. So yes, this game certainly isn't graphically the best thing in the world, but functionality-wise, you'd be a hard pass to find anything that's going to be offering something of a similar standard. Now, I bring this game to your attention because this is something I feel you should have your eyes on. I think people who watch this channel now know for a fairly good fact that I always bring projects to your attention. I should always bring this with a caveat though. This is early access, and early access titles can go like fine aged wine and become wonderful things like Squad, or very quickly can hit rock bottom. Now, the introduction of having, you know, dedicated style service systems of communal functions and having an SDK available more or less on launch, which is something that they're working towards, means that this game does have a pretty impressive feature set, and also most likely an impressive lifeline in the future with the modding tools being so actively available, and something that I don't think is pressed as well as it could be in something like Postscriptum or Squad. Now, these are the kinds of things that interest you as a first-person shooter gamer, and I find traditionally in the hardcore and tactical shooter scene, it's not about how the game looks or how well it is or, you know, all these fancy doodahs and flickering lights. It's all about functionality, core gameplay, and something that's fun. And even just from this initial playtest, although things are very much rough around the edges and don't necessarily have all the features you would possibly want, I had a really good time playing this game. I felt like I was enjoying it, and I feel like it's a game that will be enjoyed in the future. It's a very reminiscent sort of merging of what you would expect between Battlefield and Project Reality, and it kind of reminds me of those games quite distinctly, but in a very good way. You know, the lethality of weapons I feel is quite important as well, and it's something that certainly piques my attention. Now, what's pretty monumental about Warfare 1944 as an early access game is that you can buy it for £7.19 or like $8 or something of that various equivalent. It's a pretty low cost game for something that will functionally in the future offer, I feel, a really impressive feature set. And what's more incredible is that its modern and sort of near-age counterpart, Operation Harsh Doorstop, will actually be completely free. So in buying Warfare 1944 for like $8 to $10 or whatever it happens to be, or the £8.17 it is here in the United Kingdom, you're also in effect supporting the development of a free game, Operation Harsh Doorstop, which will be, again, entirely free, but build upon this feature set, the whole destruction element and everything in between. Now, I like the idea that I think a game that offers good functionality and also, more importantly, is trying to do something a little bit different is cool. You know, I'm happy to support projects like this and keep my eyes on them. Now, of course, I'm not advocating here and now go and buy everything. It's early access. However, if this is something that interests you from a player perspective, I highly recommend checking out Warfare 1944. And I'll also leave a link in the description to the Patreon that's supporting both of these games and the Drakeling's development lab in general. Now again, this is a bit of a passion project. You know, this is by no means a AAA release game, and the support for the game and release of the game is very tentative, but you can back both Warfare 1944 and Operation Harsh Doorstop on Patreon for as little as $5, as well as the possibility of getting keys, and I think that's an interesting proposition. You know, for a game that theoretically could, down the line, offer a really great feature set, and in my opinion be a very fantastic and appealing shooter, considering the destruction, which is something that I get asked about over and over again for every FPS game I play. You know, when will Hell Let Loose have destruction? When will Postscriptum or Squad have destruction? I feel like it's hitting a lot of the bells and whistles people want, and that's why I'm willing to showcase this to you guys. Not to actively say, go and 100% support this game, but if this is something that you feel, like myself, has the potential to do something really interesting, then I advocate that you do. Anywho folks, I thought I'd bring this to your attention anyway. I really enjoyed playing this, and I think it has a very bright future ahead of it with vehicles, both land, air, sea, the ability to have a physics-based destruction system that is online and works between every single person's client is impressive too, and it's something that I just wanted to bring to your attention. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like and a subscription, and feel free to check out this game. I'll leave links in the description below. As always folks, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.